Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
Welcome to the 179th episode of the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Dawson. I am sitting at Denny's in Mira Mesa on what I like to affectionately call Star Wars Day. It is the evening of the premiere of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and we're going to get our early reactions. It's myself, Mike Peterson.
What's up?
You joined us for the Force Awakens podcast, too,
I did.
right? Yeah. And everybody's favorite hometown actor, Mr. Merrick McCartha.
Good evening, everybody.
Also known as San Diego's Denzel. He's got a bit of a secret right now. He booked something and he won't tell me what it is.
Yeah, it's coming out 2017. A few things, actually. So it's funny, yeah, you got to experience a little bit of that whole Denzel. So we're sitting at the table at the place before.
It was before the movie tonight. We're sitting at Grub.
You want to tell you look like Denzel Washington? My response
The
was...
waiter says that to him.
And my response was...
yeah, you've heard that before.
I said, yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes I've
But
heard
the real
that
answer
before.
is yes, all the effing time.
I go, and he's an actor, too. I just start piling on top. You may have seen him on Criminal Minds and Scandal.
Yes.
And some local commercial.
Yes.
Yeah, Merrick's all over the place. And hopefully more so in the future.
There is...
I'm digging. I'm trying to get him to tell me what he's...
There's more of that.
It's been like 100 episodes since you've been on the podcast.
Yes.
So before we get into Rogue One, just real quick, how you doing?
A lot's happened since that 100th episode.
Oh, yeah. Lots happened with me, too.
Yeah. A lot of things, a lot of changes.
Good
in
things,
life.
bad things, all sorts of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
Life's happened. So, but career-wise, it has been, it's been, a process. I've tried to conduct my career like a business, make decisions based, being business-minded about it. And it's been fruitful for me. And it's paying off now in a big way.
Good.
So, I want to be the actor that gives back to, the actors that I know that come to me for help, that now message me, ask me questions, or look for advice, and I try to always be the actor that says, here, what can I do to help you? Yes, here's what you do. Here's what I know to do. And just always let me know if you need something that I can possibly help you with. But yeah, I've done some TV shows and commercials and some other films. I've actually not done as many short films as I had been doing by the time we did our podcast. I'm not sure if that might have been before the 40-hour where I did like a...
It was before that 48.
Okay, so after that podcast.
That summer when you were in like every 48.
that I opened myself up to do cameos for multiple teams. And the last time I did, it worked out very well. One team had to shoot Friday night. 2 teams were shooting Saturday, and then another team was shooting Sunday morning. And I was able to fit all of them in, drove around town like crazy, had to know lines, and there was at least one film where I literally ran in, set a line, and ran out. It was just hilarious.
Was that Ranger Rocket?
That was Ranger Rocket.
I was there for that one.
Yeah, we were all in Ranger Rocket.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the one that if you're watching all these films and then you see me on a few others, and all of a sudden you see me just running in, staying along and running out. I'm like, holy crap, it's him again. So I just made it all more comical.
You set a horrible precedent, though, because there's all these other actors in town that want to do that now. They think that's the thing they should be doing.
No,
I'm being as many 48s as I can. I'm like, nope, then you're not on my team. I don't want
yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that.
I think the year before, it was my first time trying it, and it was difficult, tough. I think that
was the year you did You Pack It.
This year I did You Pack It, and I did a film with Louis Martinez, and I did a film with Jody William Wall, and Randy Davison. So that was tough. I mean, I think I might have screwed up at least one person's schedule for that day because
was that the Transporter?
The Transporter the transporter.
I know my films.
Yeah, you do know your films. So it's a tough thing to do. I don't recommend anyone does it. It was a miracle that it worked out for me easily to do 4. Those 4 was the Checkout Club, Ranger Rocket, short title Ranger Rocket,
The New Adventures of Ranger Rocket and Daisy Danger.
Those 2, and I'm trying to remember the other 2 that I did that year. There's 2 more that
you were in the one with Mark Atkinson was in it too.
That was with Ryan Castleman. I did that one.
What was the name of that one?
It was about we're doing gurus. It was like he was a self-help guru, but he was totally BS.
Yeah. And you're like, don't know if he's full of shit.
I don't care, but yeah. And then there was one more. I don't think it was with the Brueggemeyer group. It was with a different group.
No, because Brueggemeyer didn't do one that year.
I think what group was it that I stepped in to help with that? The other one, I forget. But it was. It just worked out well for me to do it. Oh no, it was, and then it was You Pack It. So it was, Checkout Club, Ranger Rocket, Ryan Castleman's
That's a lot of movies in one.
And then
one weekend.
You Pack It, and You Pack It was great. So.
Well, okay. So that's an update on Merrick.
Yeah, that's my update. There's something happening in my career currently that keeping close to my chest.
Damn it! I thought we were going to get it.
I'm excited.
I thought we put enough coffee in him.
I'm excited to do it, and I don't really want to share until
treat him to
done,
the best midnight stop at Denny's, and maybe we could,
You'll have to come back on the show and debut
weasel
it on the
him
show.
out of those pants. But nope.
No, not getting in my pants.
Well, when you do get to the point where you want to make that announcement,
Sure.
There's an
You have the great platform right here.
And talk with us about it.
I think it would be a good podcast for me to come back and talk about these things that
I'd like to talk to you again about the whole process because you've really gone at it very hard lately.
Yeah.
It'd be good to hear what that process was like and where you end up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to.
That's a future episode of the Intellectual Podcast coming your way. So now, on to the business at hand, Star Wars. Let's do the first 10, 15 minutes and try and be spoiler free.
Okay.
And then we'll tell everybody, okay, turn this shit off if you don't want to hear anything. Right. So, initial reaction, Mike Peterson, go.
I can't say enough good things about it. I literally have nothing bad to say about it. Absolutely amazing. Shot beautifully. Story is phenomenal. It ties everything together, literally, between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
And I know there's some confusion, people out there, because I've been fielding this question for a couple weeks now about where this movie sits. It is not a sequel to last year's movie, The Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. It is a sequel to Revenge of the Sith and a prequel to A New Hope. Mm-hmm. But more a prequel to A New Hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Than a sequel to
literally
Revenge.
takes place up to the minute that New Hope starts.
Yes.
Yeah, it is the exact situation that leads to Leia at Tatooine.
The situation leads to her being boarded by Darth Vader.
Yep.
And
so it's incredibly cool.
Acting is great. The special effects, the costumes are. I thought there was even more alien race and everything else that we've seen than any other film. Like even more so than you have your couple cantina scenes where you see different aliens. But
they were much more integrated into the actual life of the story. Yeah, it was very cool. Merrick, your first thought?
I agree. It's I'd say it is the best Star Wars movie that's been made.
Bold.
I would say that. It could be arguable that it's whether it's better than Empire, but I think it's the best story. I think the story is told differently than any of the other films, and I watched a lot of the acting in it. Is it right to talk about the stars that are in the movie that are not surprises?
Don't tell the surprises.
No, the Luna.
yet.
What's the actor Luna that plays the main?
Diego Luna.
Diego Luna. Phenomenal acting by Diego Luna. I watched some things he did in the film tonight.
So a lot of subtlety in his
A lot of
performance.
subtlety. And I know they didn't overdub or ADR his voice on anything because I'm watching what he's saying, what he's doing, and he's a just phenomenal actor. Another great person to see, who I believe everyone already knows in the cast. It's okay to talk about names, or is it not? The actor that plays the pilot that now switches sides. Come on. I'm getting food at Denny's.
It's going to be sizzle on your mic. Listen to that.
So the yes,
That's a sizzling skillet.
the pilot that supposedly was captured, he was turning over
The Imperial pilot.
the Imperial pilot. Anyway, so that actor is the actor from The Night Of. He is the actor from the American version of the series The Night Of.
I heard I need to watch that. I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen that?
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, so he plays the in The Night Of. That's my phone. He's the young man that is arrested for murder, and he is I think he's Pakistani in the story of The Night Of, and his acting in that was just everyone's raving about his acting, but his acting in this was just I can now see why he was picked. He is one of the best actors on the scene, I think.
I think across the board, like everybody really
Everyone did their job.
came and did their jobs.
And I guess maybe I'm just watching certain things, and I was impressed with him before. That's why I'm sort of calling him out. But
Well, and I love having you giving reaction to this because
Yeah.
for me, in a lot of ways, because this isn't the Skywalker saga storyline,
no.
and these characters are quote unquote real people within this universe, I think it really required a different level of acting of the actors within this storyline. Because none of them are Jedi.
No.
None of them have superpowers. They're real people choosing to do the right thing or not do the right thing.
Yeah.
And in that way requires a completely different tool set than I think the traditional Star Wars films have had.
Yeah.
And I think they did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Like just across the board.
Yeah.
Everybody was hugely believable.
Yeah.
Even if their parts were small,
Yeah.
like they all brought a depth to their characters that just you felt the weight of everything.
Yeah. Even the characters that were alien, that were not actual people, or those characters, I just felt real depth in what they were doing. And this might wrap up any movie where towards the end my jaw literally drops and I go, holy shit, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I nearly welled up. It was so good. Moments in this movie. That's what I know. That's why I said this is the best Star Wars movie that's been made. So I highly recommend this to anyone that likes a good story. It's not just a sci-fi movie. It's not a Star Wars fan movie.
It's a war film.
It's a war film.
We finally got a real war film.
It was like, okay, this is like This is like.
This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted Attack of the Clones to be.
Yeah.
Like not the stupid fight arena thing that we ended up with a bunch of Jedi and nothing made any damn sense.
No.
This was a real gritty war film.
It was a war movie.
Boots on the ground, aerial battles.
Yeah.
And
it
the stakes were real.
Right.
The stakes were entirely real. There
Yeah.
were consequences to choices that were made. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
across
and
the board.
we should also mention we saw this in 3D, and I gotta say, I mean, I don't watch many movies in 3D, but I can't imagine not watching this in 3D. It adds so much amazement and wonder to the screen.
Well, I've said for a long time on the podcast because there's people who really hate 3D.
Yeah,
I don't have a beef with 3D per se. My beef with 3D is when it's not utilized well.
right.
But they utilized the 3D well in this movie to give you that sense of expansion. When the AT-ATs are on the beach and you're firing a small rocket at them, that 3D helps you feel that kind of massiveness of the walker barreling down on you. You know, like
Yeah.
that's where it's used really well.
All the space battles with the ships flying in and out and
Yes.
flying through ships.
Can't imagine
Like,
how they
that,
3D.
that's 3D. Like that's
On the
where-
bridge of the
yeah, absolutely.
of the rebel ship when they're looking down
Yeah.
through the glass towards
man.
when
towards the planet. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's when 3D is utilized really well, and I thought they did a good job with the 3D in this film, for sure. Problem with 3D, it's like 8% of the population, their eyes aren't the average distance apart.
So they're not going to get the effect?
So they have a hard time with the effect. That's why some people get headaches or vertigo or whatever when they're watching 3D movies, because their eyes don't line up quite right with the polarization.
And obviously, where you sit in the theater completely changes
Yes.
how.
If you're watching a
About that too,
3D
because
film, by
we saw
God's
this as a
sake,
group.
don't sit in the front row.
Well, we saw this as a group, and it was nice that we saw it in different parts of the film, different parts of the theater, and now we get to wonder what our perspectives, how they differed. I said, just what do you call that? Stage right or audience right, rather, I guess it would be
House rate.
house right, towards the back. I think you were house left, closer to me, towards the front. To the
I
screen.
was closer to the middle,
Yeah.
Really?
but towards the back, yeah.
Okay.
He was house left.
Okay.
But yeah, 3D is so dependent on sitting in the right place. It's and a lot of people don't really realize that. They sit in the wrong spot. So if you're going to do 3D, pick a theater where you get to pick your seats.
Yes.
Be choosy about it. Sit to the middle and not towards the front. You want to sit about halfway or 3/4 of the way back. You'll have a much better experience. I got French fries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So story-wise, okay, so we're 17 minutes into the podcast, so I'm going to say this right now.
We need your reaction, though.
Yeah,
we haven't
yours.
had your reaction.
Okay,
yet.
okay. We'll do my reaction. I forget. I forget that I didn't react. I agree with Merrick. I think it's the best Star Wars film made. And I talked about this a little bit with Jordan Jacobo of Jordan Hates in the lobby after we watched it. And he's like, Empire, I got to hold Empire. And I said to him very clearly, I said, look, take that shock and awe that we had as children of the I Am Your Father out of that movie. It's just another good Star Wars movie. But we had that 2-year, 3-year between the first film and that
So we're all
film, and
excited to
then
make this, yeah.
oh
And
my
then,
God,
and then holding on to it till return, where you're still sitting on that for a
yeah.
while.
And so, I mean, for us, that reveal and the consequences of that reveal sustained us through our childhood for a long time.
Yeah.
But you look at my nephews; they've grown up with the original trilogy, just as stuff they watch on disc, and they that impact isn't there. Like that's just the way it's always been. Darth Vader's Luke's dad, whatever. They never experienced that long pause of wondering, and so it doesn't carry the weight.
Did you show the nephews? What order did you go? The original trilogy, then the
No,
prequel?
my nephews have literally just grown up with Star Wars on the television.
just in the background.
Period.
So didn't really even.
Michael Logan, the 13-year-old, the first movie he ever watched on TV was a Star Wars film.
Gotcha.
And it was the first things on TV that held his attention. But it was any Star Wars film. It didn't matter. He was watching that stuff before he could talk, before he could walk. I mean, we're at that generation now where these kids,
It's everywhere.
it's just everywhere.
Right.
And they've got all the cartoons and they've got everything else. So I don't think Empire carries the weight with the younger generation that it carries with us.
And I mean, to quote Peter Parker in the last Civil War, "Hey, have you ever seen that really old movie?"
Well, yeah, and a lot of people poo-pooed that line in the movie
But
in
it's
Civil War, but it's true.
I
It
have
just
friends.
doesn't carry the weight.
I
that
have
it had
friends
with us.
who saw Star Wars for the first time in the last couple of years, but they're older. When they go back, they're like, when they watch the prequels versus the originals, they're like, well, I like the prequels better because the effects are better. I'm like, it's just a different mindset.
Well, I think it's interesting. We're at a point now where there is literally a different Star Wars for each generation.
Exactly.
And to me, this film is probably the best of all the Star Wars films. If you take out our childhood nostalgia for the originals.
Sure, I'd say that.
If you just look at them purely from film standpoint.
And as a standalone film.
And this is a crazy standalone film. It's not going to be revisited.
Right. No, it's done.
Yeah, it is done. It's a complete freaking story. One story, you're out. And it's wonderful.
1 second.
So that's my reaction. That's my initial reaction. It's wonderful. I love it. It's fantastic. Like you, I really don't have anything negative to say about it. I know a couple people in the lobby complained a little bit about some of the CG work, specifically on a couple of characters.
Yep.
And I'm going to say now, if you don't want spoilers, shut it off now. Come back and listen to the rest of this podcast after you've seen the film.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoiler!
Grand Moff Tarkin is fucking amazing.
So good.
And Randy Davison had issues with him. But I think it was more just like Randy couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he was watching Grand Moff Tarkin on screen. And so he was nitpicking what it looked like.
The guy who plays him, his name is Guy Henry. But the CG that they used to age him and make him look like A New Hope Grand Tarkin, but slightly younger, just slightly, is amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredibly done. Incredibly well done. And to Merrick's point, the character at the very, very end, the thing that made him well up and go, oh, the piece that ties this film completely into A New Hope. Not as good as the Grand Moff Tarkin. It is true. But for me, it change the emotional impact of seeing that character arrive in the final moments of this movie. And I actually felt like I anticipated that she was coming.
Well, you and I talked about this a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
That I thought she was going to be, you're like, maybe they can get away without doing it. But
yeah, I anticipated it, and I started to realize, as I started to anticipate it, that it was in fact going to happen, that if it didn't happen, I'd feel cheated.
I would have felt really cheated. Oh, if anyone doesn't realize, can we say we're going to go for it?
Yeah, we're in spoiler territory now. 100%.
So it's Leia. The bridge opens, and you see the back of her in their white robe. And then you cut to a different camera angle where you see the side of her, but you still can't see their face in the robe. I'm like, if they just do that I would have felt cheated. Because then they would have not actually, they would have gotten away with knowing it's Leia, but not showing her face. I mean, I would have been so disappointed at that. But they went on to the CG face, and
she said a line.
Yeah, and it's that was a little bit. She was too perfect. Her CG, like no wrinkles in the face. It was just that CG wasn't quite as good as Moff.
Well, I think the difficulty there is I think it's always more difficult to do a younger person's face than an older person's face. Because you can hide a lot of the weirdness in wrinkles and shadows and whatever. But you don't get that on a smooth younger person's face.
Especially the bend like right around the corners of the face, right? Where it's too round almost on a perfect skin.
But it was fantastic.
Yep.
And in no way is it a downside for me. We're just talking about CGI Leia.
CGI Leia. So I didn't think it was bad, CGI Leia. And I thought I like how they tried to make it quick and not linger. I mean, they did linger on the other character. I don't know if we're mentioning names. Did we do that?
We're
Spoiler. So it's Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
and they did they did a great job with them. And I'm trying to figure out how they did that, because Peter Cushing, he's a iconic acting legend in sci-fi and horror, and you've seen him act. So I'm wondering if they just studied his acting, his motions to do that. What were you talking about that?
Well, yeah, he actually.
I looked it up on IMDb.
Okay, so
It's all I know is the guy who played him. His name's Guy Henry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure exactly.
I read a little bit about him on
goes.
Nerdist today.
Mm-hmm.
And they went through and tried to find an actor that could actually portray the mannerisms and stuff, so it's not 100% CGI character.
Right, good.
And so they were able to use his eyes, and I think that's what makes him work better than the Leia one does.
Okay, so we're bashing the Leia one? Is that what
No, just saying that the Leia one, I think, has a harder time with the uncanny valley than the Grand Moff Tarkin one does. And we were saying it's easier to hide a lot of the imperfections of CGI on an older character than a younger, because of the wrinkles on the face, and it allows you to give more shadow and contrast.
Well,
But that kind of young, smooth face, I think, lends itself to looking fake.
But you had like 2 lines showing your face, I think. Anyway, so
Yeah. So, and that's what you're saying. They were judicial in their use of Leia. But I also felt like, as I started to anticipate that she was coming, that sounded wrong.
That didn't dawn on me until I realized what was going on. Because I'm like, wait, are they going to do the ship? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, but as I anticipated they were going to show her, I was
nice
like, if they don't show her, I'll feel really cheated.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise.
Because Mike and I talked about it the other day,
A couple days ago,
about whether or not they would go there.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
And Mike really felt like they would go there. And I was like, it's 50-50. Like, I could see them wanting to avoid that because it's too, like whatever.
Well, I mean,
but yeah, the closer we got to the end of the movie,
I made a point to not look up anything or try to research anything about the story or any of this. I knew that the story is basically the people that found the.
I have 4 nephews who have the internet. Right. There was no avoiding spoilers for me.
So I went in, want to keep that, because I've been to movies and been disappointed because I had these high expectations. Didn't want that. And so I think I just had an awesome experience because I didn't try to research and find out everything about the movie before. You guys couldn't avoid it. I mean, you're a journalist, you're a filmmaker, so you know.
I luckily did a good job. Besides the trailers, that's all I ever saw.
So, yes, because you got that far about the CGI. Did we talk about the Darth Vader scene yet?
No, we haven't.
We haven't. Oh, dear God.
I guess the question there would be, which Darth Vader scene?
Both were amazing. So
there was a lot more Vader in this than I expected.
Yeah.
When I heard there was only going to be maybe 5 minutes, it turned out, well, yeah, maybe, but there was really well done, perfectly done.
And we know that James Earl Jones is, 80? I don't know how. I mean, maybe they use sound adjustment. I don't know how he keeps the voice. He's still Darth Vader.
It was
it's
a
his
little,
tool, man.
It
It's
was a little off. I felt like at certain times.
I didn't think it was off. Because actually, if you go back and watch the original trilogy, James Earl Jones' Vader voice gets deeper and darker as the movies go on.
Yeah.
But in the first movie, it's pretty high pitched.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right. I hadn't even thought of that.
Matched it.
And this matched it. I was like, wow.
It does match it. It is to the point where you can watch this and then watch.
Yeah, you'll go right into
right
New
into
Hope
it.
and it'll fit in just fine. And I think that's stellar. And I don't think a lot of people caught that because a couple people were like, his voice seemed a little different.
No, that's his
No,
voice.
go back and watch
Now that
New
you
Hope.
say that, I totally understand that.
Yeah, it's really, it's like attention to detail.
Yes.
Cool.
And even
there was
his mask
so
is
many.
more like New Hope because as the other episodes, his eyes are darker. They were shaded out.
Yeah.
Well, I never understood why, some things. Why sometimes you see the red in his mask. I always thought there was black.
Well,
Especially as you get later on, like in Return of the Jedi, they're just pretty much black.
But New Hope, it's a lighter.
When I
tone.
went back and watched New Hope, 2 days
You
ago.
can actually see his eyes.
You can totally see his eyes in the red. I'm like, I never caught that as a kid.
Yeah. And if you go back to Revenge of the Sith,
Oh, that's
they're putting it on
that's
him.
the first time
they
I
are
saw
red lenses.
That's the first time I really noticed it was red.
Yeah. It's they were very good at the little things.
Oh, there's
On
so many.
such a big movie.
They
were very good at the
many
little
great
things.
little details and Easter eggs throughout this entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, and we'll talk about the other movie, but I will say that the Darth Vader scene where he takes out the team of rebels. I haven't seen. I mean, we've seen Darth Vader in all these movies. We've never really seen him kick ass like in a battle scene.
Yeah,
As-
because
as-
at the end of Revenge of the Sith was when he
only fighting
became
with-
Darth Vader,
right.
and he wasn't fighting.
the other guy. This is where he just. I mean, it was
This is unless you've watched Rebels. This is
Yeah.
the Vader we've all
Yes.
wanted.
Yes.
Well, and
Absolutely.
that's an interesting thing to mention is Rebels, because about halfway through this movie, I was thinking this is way more along the storytelling lines of what we're seeing in Star Wars television right now,
Right.
with the lore, the Jedi lore, regular people fighting the battles, and occasionally coming across someone like Vader, and just being like, what do we do? I mean, what does a normal person do against someone like Darth Vader?
The fear in the rebellion's eyes as he's coming down the
And how about
aisle.
that reveal? You
Oh.
hear his breathing in the dark, and then illuminated only by his blade.
yeah.
It
I was
awesome.
expecting the door to
I thought it
crush
was gonna
in,
burst open.
but nope, it's just him,
Just him.
just dark, and just you hear the breathing, you hear him stepping, and
Yeah,
then
I was waiting for the door to explode open too, but the way they chose to do that was so much better.
perfect.
God.
And then absolute hell breaks loose. And if you've ever played any of the Star Wars video games, like Force Awakens, or not, Star Killer. What's the
Force Unleashed.
Unleashed? Thank you. This is that Vader that we've all wanted to see, and he just unleashes hell in this small little hallway.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Force chokes a guy up into the ceiling, holds him there, slices him in half with a lightsaber.
He's
Oh,
backwards
jeez.
slice. Just
Blocks
my
blasters.
God.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, the guy pinned up against the roof was what did it for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the Vader that I
Yeah.
want to see. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched any of the TV series stuff, but that was that's the only one that could be worth seeing the whole damn movie.
well, the TV series stuff is really interesting, and there were Easter eggs to the to Rebels within this movie. But and actually, Forrest Whitaker's character was originated in the Clone Wars cartoon.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so he's the first person to portray one of the animated characters into one of the live action
No,
films.
it was
which
Rebels.
is cool.
Was this?
No,
was
it
it
was
Clone Wars?
It was Clone Wars.
Okay.
Yeah,
So here's what I saw about.
Oh, that's right.
Forrest Whitaker.
It was like the very last season of Clone Wars or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So watching Forrest Whitaker, and just as an actor, and I've seen him do this tonight, and I saw, if you've ever seen the new Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington, there's Vincent D'Onofrio plays a character, and he does this high-pitched country voice in that. And I thought it's an interesting choice for him to do that, and it played well. Forrest Whitaker kind of does that, too, in this. He has this high-pitched voice in this. It's not his normal talking voice at all. But it plays well. It's like this is another skill as an actor that he's doing. A lot of actors, I mean, even I have to reach that level myself. I approach it with generally the same tone, but it'll be an emotional level that I might change. But I don't, I'm not skilled as fine-tuned as.
Well,
changing
I think a
pitch
lot of
voice.
that is confidence in an actor. Because like to make a choice like that is saying to yourself, "I'm confident that I can pull off something beyond my everyday."
Yeah.
And he's still doing his own portrayal of it, but he's also got a character that's already based in the lore.
Yeah, in the TV series.
So in
is
the
that
lore,
how he was?
exactly. I think he had fairly normal, higher than Forrest Whitaker's voice, but just a normal pitched voice. I'd have to go back and watch, but
But he's also a character who's been through a ton since he
Yeah.
was on Clone Wars.
right.
And he
even
was radical and
even in-
extremist and
even in this, I think the difference between him when he first rescues Jin. He's bald and just come here. I'm here to help you. To crazy, don't trust anyone. I'm going to use this crazy monster to brainwash.
Apocalypse Now sort of type character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting that you reference Apocalypse Now because again, this is a war movie.
It was. I thought,
and it had those kinds of stakes. All the characters.
It was like these beach fight scenes, explosions, the aircraft. It was
characters are going through PTSD. All the war room stuff where they're debating what they should do. They've got this huge weapon. Like, we should just throw in the towel. No, we need to attack. And they can't agree. And like. And that felt like a real war room where people just can't come to an agreement on something.
What I found interesting about that is, they decided in the movie, no, okay, we're sorry, we aren't all on unanimous vote. So then Jin and their team decided, just screw it, we're just going to go out and do it our own thing. There's no real, I expected a plan. Like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Nope, we're just going to go in by the seat of our pants, and there wasn't a big plan of how we're going to take this thing out and get the plans. It just happened. There's a little bit of one, but not.
They were rebels.
Yeah.
No, also the
and actually, if you watch the cartoons, the rebel cartoon, that's how everything is in the rebel cartoon. Right. They're constantly just running off and doing stuff and then figuring it out.
Did any? Because I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday at Disney. I heard like the last couple episodes really possibly tied in to Rogue One. Did they end up doing that, or as much as people were thinking, or?
I will say that the Jimmy Smits conversation with Mon Mothma in this movie is very similar to conversations that happened in the mid-season finale of Rebels this season.
Cool.
So is it a direct tie-in? No. Are they talking about the same character? Yes.
Yeah, I liked the... Supposedly the ghost ship is in the Rebellion hangar somewhere, but over the intercom at one point you hear someone asking for General Syndulla, which is the captain in Rebels. Mm-hmm. Like, I caught that one. That was one of my first Easter eggs I caught.
Man.
Another thing, too, and I haven't seen episode 4 recent enough to tell, but the woman that plays the main commander of the Rebel forces at the war room table, the
Mon Mothma.
She's the younger version of the actress that's in.
Mon Mothma didn't appear in the original trilogy until Return of the Jedi. She's the one who uttered many Bothan spies died to bring us this information. Yeah. Yeah, she's playing that character.
Right.
And it's the same actress who played her in the prequels.
So, wait a minute, then. Because I thought in episode 4 they said many Bothans died to bring these plans.
No, that's a Return of the Jedi quote.
Really?
Mm-hmm. For the second Death Star.
But that's not for the first?
Nope. Because you never have that conversation. Because Leia already has the plans and she's working, and then they get to Yavin and they immediately start deconstructing, and Luke hops in the X-Wing and off they go.
Okay, so I do remember that scene where when she says the many Bothans died, this is where Han Solo's already in with them, and he's not going to fight. She's mad. She's like, "Oh, you're just going to leave?" Is that what happens at this, or he's part of this? You know what I'm saying? There's a scene where they're planning, and she's many Bothans died.
That is Yavin 4, but the many Bothans died bit never happens there. You're thinking of Han coming up to Luke and having a conversation with him in the bay on Yavin 4.
Right.
Where he's just collecting the money. He's like, he's done.
He's packing all his stuff up. And Luke's like, so you're just going to leave?
Yeah.
Yes. Got your money and you're going to go?
Right.
And Han says,
sure she said that line?
I'm positive. Absolutely positive.
In Jedi?
100% positive.
And it's for the second one. So now I'm confused.
Yeah, because they're standing in the war room in Jedi, and you've got the projector, the hologram of Endor, and the second Death Star in orbit around it, and that shield generator putting the shield around it.
Yeah.
And they're going through all the stuff.
Okay.
And then she's talking about the gravity of the whole situation. And then she very melodramatically goes, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
So All right, so now you got to tie it because I'm confused. Because how would this be the same plans for the second Death Star? They didn't change any of the plans. Then they just rebuilt.
No,
it?
the second Death Star had a completely different reactor
exactly.
system. They actually had to fly all the way into the core in the
Right.
second Death
Yes,
Star.
true.
This one, they just had to hit the exhaust port.
Yeah. So then, what are these?
And I love that they turned that into an intentional design flaw.
Yep.
After all of our debates growing up. What idiot makes it so susceptible to destruction?
The what is it? The Family Guy series. It's like, it's wait, you studied what happened? Well, it's nothing really. No, let's hear it. Well, there's this one little thing where if you blast into it, the whole thing blows up. But it's like what?
But it's just such a small thing. It's like it's nearly impossible. I mean, you have to be able to hit a womp rat at full speed to hit it.
They're like, can we cover it with plywood or something? Plywood? It looks terrible. Oh, so great.
So funny.
All right, so now I've got to rewatch, apparently, the first trilogy.
But this film is basically based entirely off of one sentence in the opening crawl of A New Hope.
Yep.
Okay.
Where it says a band of rebel spies have stolen the plans to the Empire's secret weapon, the Death Star.
Yes. And that's what this. I thought this was based.
That's the whole
honestly
thing. The whole movie's based on that
this
line.
This is based on Minnie Bothans died to get you these plans.
A lot of people have thought that. But
Yeah,
no.
that's what I thought. So these aren't even the Bothans then? That's
No.
Wow.
No. Wow. So there could be a whole. There's the Rogue 2 story.
There's another.
There's the Jedi team.
Yes, they'll do the sequel based on the Bothans to get the plans for the second.
Yeah,
Death Star.
they could do that.
Yeah.
Because that could be a completely
That
different
could be.
kind of
I
story.
don't know. I early thought about they could probably do a series just on Forrest Whitaker's character, unless they've already done it in the TV series.
Well, he was in like a story arc within Clone Wars and
Okay.
then disappeared. And
Okay.
then they announced him in this movie, and a lot of people were like, "Wait a minute, could he be possibly, looking at his outfit and stuff? Like, could he maybe possibly, and as little story details started to leak out, they're like, he's gotta be, all the people who are way into it more than me.
Yeah.
But I just think it's cool that somebody's like actually taking a character that was originated in the animated series and bringing them into the live action. I think that's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
That ties everything together so nicely.
Yeah.
I would love to see a live action Ahsoka.
Yeah, we'd all like to see a live action.
Yeah,
right.
So the story also talking about the different way it was told.
Very different. No opening crawl.
No opening
Which
crawl.
blew me away. Which I understand why they did it, but literally in the middle or the beginning of the film, lights go out. You see Lucasfilm, and then it just starts.
No, it
Starts in space.
did say a long time ago. In a
Or sorry,
galaxy
yes,
far, far away.
yes, you're right.
And then
It does
starts-
that, and then just goes to a planet. Not no crawl, not even the Star Wars like that. I was at least just expecting that.
Yep.
But nope, it just goes straight to a planet, and I literally went, "What?" in the middle of the
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah. Didn't do that. The the trilogy tended to have a happy ending type factor to it, and this didn't have it. This had no. They all died, and
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up.
yeah,
Because I had mentioned like 6 months ago on the podcast that I felt like the only thing that would redeem this film and make it a good, borderline great film would be for this team not to survive.
Yeah.
Because we never see them, and they're not even really talked about,
no,
in the rest of the deal. So what happened to that team? Like, if you're going to tell the story of this team, they had to give the ultimate sacrifice getting those plans out.
yeah,
And I held out hope that was going to be the case, but I never believed Disney would allow it to go there.
right. It's a Disney film.
I really didn't believe Disney would let Lucasfilm do that. And even Lucasfilm, like under George Lucas's leadership in the prequels, that's part of what I think hurt the prequels was his inability to
Just let
Kill
it
off.
be
really
raw.
let it go
Yeah.
there because he was a dad at that point
Yeah.
and he wanted to soften it and keep it a kid's film
Oh,
and whatever.
what was the stuff
This is
about,
not a kid's movie.
Like the Jedi film originally being Revenge of the Jedi, and they said no, it's got to be Return because bad guys get revenge. They were trying to just make it so.
Right.
So it's things like that he was doing, and the whole who drew first, Han or what's his name.
Greedo.
So that was like part of
Kylo
George
stabbed
Lucas's influence to doing that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this happened here. This was just a
This was a good,
film.
damn good, gritty war film set in the Star Wars universe, which is amazing.
Yeah.
With a great female lead.
Fantastic female lead.
Yeah.
Felicity Jones is Jyn Erso. Really actually had to tap into some real emotions. Like, especially towards the middle of the movie. Like,
The only thing I've ever seen her in
you
was
really had to feel what she was going through.
the second Spider-Man. So even then, she had just a small little cameo, right?
So another character that's kind of something we haven't talked about is the droid. What's his name?
K2SO.
Oh, he's so good.
Played by Alan
K2SO.
Tudyk.
So it's a droid that a twist on the R2-D2 isn't the prim and proper etiquette protocol droid. This guy's just
I think if you mixed
he's just a
C3,
he's a snarky droid.
He's snarky.
well, that's if you mixed C3PO with R2, this is kind of the character you get.
Yes, I agree. That's true.
Because you get R2, who is a sassy little droid
Yeah.
that if you could talk, this would be that character.
Yes. Good, and everyone loved him. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, he had the best lines in the movie.
He was comic relief.
Like
in
across
middle
the
of it.
board, the best lines in the movie. All right, with the exception of the blind mystic.
It's
Donnie Yen?
Donnie
Yen.
Yen. I don't remember his character's name. It's like
Chetty.
some-
When they put the bag over his head, he's like, really?
Yes.
I'm blind.
Yes. I gotta think they might have ADR'd that, but yes.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. That was very good.
You know, that gets back to the thing that I've been saying about like the Marvel movies over the DC films is little moments like that is what brings humanity to characters and makes you go, I relate to that person and I care about that person, you know? And I bring it up all the time. The little exchange between Spider-Man and Captain America in Civil War tells you volumes about
in the middle of them
those
fighting.
two characters.
Bronx and
Yeah, you got heart, kid. Where you from? You know, I'm from the Bronx, Brooklyn.
Yep.
You know, and he runs off. You know, and it's like
Centuries
that,
apart.
but that is a human moment,
Right.
right? And the idea that this blind guy is amused or bewildered by these guys throwing a bag over his head is a human moment.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that. That's just a little thing that tells volumes about character, you know, like in the midst of getting, you know, kidnapped or arrested, he still finds the humor in life, you know, or the irony in what his situation is. And I think that makes them relatable.
Yeah.
So even though they're in Star Wars and they're on alien planets and they're surrounded by crazy creatures and giant machines and stuff, you still have that human moment, that moment that allows you a window in, you know? And I think that's good storytelling.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a great job. Like, these are characters we didn't know before. By the middle of the film, I gave a crap. I did. I really gave a crap. Like, I wanted to see them succeed.
Yeah.
My biggest thing going into this was Gareth Edwards, the director.
I was worried about what he did.
Tell me the story.
The new Godzilla.
After he did The Last Godzilla, which was a awful movie.
Why do they keep trying to make those?
That's when I heard he was doing
American
it. I'm like,
Godzilla films don't work.
I was just like, whoa, what are they thinking? And then he does something like this, and it's perfection.
Yeah, it's so the visually, you know, the space wars, the fight scenes on the planet. So I loved that the moment where they decide these ships, the big Star Destroyer gets disabled, and they use a smaller ship to push it into the other one. That's brilliant. That's something new that we haven't seen in any other films before. How does that normally work? And
that's a physicality of the spaceships.
Yeah.
You know, like
and then they use that crash to destroy the shield and to get the transmission out. And also, just great writing on it. You know,
The script is everything, and it paid off.
Yeah.
Well, and I was worried about that too, because they had said that they went back in and rewrote the script and did a bunch of reshoots.
Oh, really?
And, you know, there was a lot of talk on the internet about a year ago.
Oh, really?
Where, fans and stuff who follow everything got a little twitchy.
Was this after Force Awakens came out? Or
Yeah, after Force Awakens came out, they went back and tweaked the script a bit, and the rumor was that they were, Disney was unhappy with how dark it was, and they were going to lighten it up a bit, and but I don't know, it didn't feel like they lightened anything up. Felt
So here's my
felt
question.
real.
You're right, real. So I didn't get at the very beginning, the opening scene when the scientist and his wife he's being taken by the Empire. Why does his wife come out? Why didn't she hide and run? Why did she come out? Didn't he say, go run, take the kid? Why is she showing
Plot
up?
advancement.
That really angered me at the very beginning. I'm like, why are you there? It's stormtroopers. You know what's going to happen. You're not getting out of this.
Yeah, I think she thought she'd be able to kill him and they'd be able to get away.
Really? So that is the only part that I was angry by.
But that is the part that makes it a Star Wars movie. Because parents make really dumb decisions in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Aunts and uncles, too.
Yes.
Like caretakers in general make really bad choices in Star Wars movies.
Yeah. The actor that plays the scientist, I like him. He was in a
Mads
Bond
Mikkelsen.
villain. I think I saw him as a Bond villain last in one of the James Bond.
He was in
Casino Royale, right?
Was it Casino Royale?
Yes.
Yeah, Casino Royale.
And he was in Doctor Strange, too, right?
And then
2 Disney films back to back this fall.
Where else? He's been in King Arthur.
Yeah.
It's a weird reality we're in.
He's been
where
all
Star
over.
Wars and Marvel are all Disney properties.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
They're doing a good job.
Also on acting notes too on these guys. So I've been reading a lot about, and lately there's a lot of articles come out about the big actors, the stars now, and how they all got their start in theater. So I'm watching a lot of the actors theater, and I can tell these are actors that got their start in theater. The way they talk, the way they. I mean, yes, they do the British thing, but that British theater thing is because the British thing that they do on screen is because they did that on stage in England. And I even saw. I recently was watching it was a Shakespeare story. I forget, but it was Denzel Washington in it, along with Emma Watson. Who's the people that are in Love Actually are in this, and there's Denzel Washington. I forget the name. It's like a Shakespeare movie, but he's doing it. So, and Denzel's a big proponent of doing theater work and getting your start in theater. And the articles I've read talked about how a lot of these big stars now they do theater for like 10, 20 years. And that's how, and then they went on to become film actors after they did some stuff on Broadway. And all these people that are winning the awards now are actors that were doing theater for years and years and years. So I can see how, I can tell that's the influence when I watch them on screen. I'm not a person that's done theater for years and years and years. I've done theater, but I'm not a theater actor.
You are not a classically trained theater actor.
I'm more like a classically trained screen actor, if anything. So, but people say that, oh yeah, get your start on theater. But if you work in the business, you know that you can't do the same types of things you do on stage, on screen. You cannot be as big. You have to basically retrain yourself to be smaller for the screen.
Yes and no. If you're doing a straight up drama, I agree. You gotta pull it back, be a bit more subtle. But when you're doing sci-fi lends itself to stage actors better than traditional dramas do. Because there's something, and comic book movies too, I think. There's something Machiavellian about the villains. There's something melodramatic about the situations.
So that's why
everything's bigger than real life.
Dune and Excalibur are so good. So they're all these theater actors that are
but they're portraying more grandiose than real life situations. Whereas I think if you're a classically trained theater actor and you're supposed to do something smaller, where we're doing just a scene, you and me across the table right here like this, I think the classically trained theater actor is going to be too big in this moment.
Sure. So my advice is
but so much of the movies we're doing today are these big tentpole films and whatnot. And I think a lot of the stage actors are getting a lot of work in film because of that, and are then able to parlay that kind of recognition that they're getting from doing the big films into the little dramas that they want to go and do.
Sure.
And then they don't act the same in the little dramas as
No.
they're doing in the sci-fi and the comic book and whatever.
No. The thing about studying theater. So actors, I think, theater experience is very important for a lot of reasons as an actor. And I think that with everything you train for as an actor, you want to take what's useful for you, works best for you. But people tend to forget that how important theater is, even as an actor, especially when you're starting out. When you don't have any credits, theater is what you want to have on your resume. That's what the agents and casting people are looking at when they see that you haven't been on a TV show or a major film. They want to see how many theater shows you've done. What theater have you done?
Well, I think one of the things about theater is it's an opportunity to exist within a character for an extended period of time and really explore the story of the character, really explore the persona.
Yeah.
Whereas film acting, you're in and out. Oftentimes you get the script the day you shoot. You have like 10 minutes with the lines dialogue. Bam, you shoot it and you move on. You don't have a lot of time to just exist within the body of that person.
I think that mainly applies to more short films. I think when you get into the bigger feature-length films, then Denzel Washington is another actor like that. Al Pacino does that, where they really just, they'll do research and spend time.
They're afforded the luxury at the level that they're at.
That level, yeah.
But even in the $10 million range, $20 million range films where they shoot for like 15 days, they're not getting that kind of time.
No.
So I think where theater helps is you build a tool set of, I've explored characters similar to this guy before, and you got the ability to kind of tap into previous experiences portraying characters like that. And getting to what we were saying about Forrest Whitaker, affecting a different vocal style. I think some of that comes from that kind of lengthy training where you've been able to explore and learn your physicality, learn your vocality. And it's just a tool set. It's something you can tap into. You have the confidence to tap into it because you existed in that frame set for a long time in theater.
Yeah.
And you had that opportunity to do that in theater that you're just not afforded. Certainly not in television.
No.
Where production is super fast, right?
One day I'll be able to tell you my experience working on a soap opera. And how fast that is. How fast. They go through so many episodes in a day.
Yeah.
And these actors that are regulars on the show, you get mad. How come they know other lines? Well, they just got the script like 2 hours ago. And they got this huge paragraphs of dialogue to go over and get down. And they do it. And they have to do it and move on.
Yeah.
It's boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's just stunning. It's stunning the way they can do that.
Yeah, so people bag on soap opera acting, and they forget that it's so fast paced. The actors don't have time to give these deep research, moments. Unless the regulars, maybe they've done that character for a while, but it comes off as being bad because they haven't really had the time to really dive into what's being said, the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You may know this off the top of your head.
What's
year, A New Hope came out.
77.
Okay, it was 77. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. 40 years ago this coming summer.
That's what I thought.
Nerd alert.
Well, that's okay. I kind of like it because I'm right up there. People that are still alive,
What did you think of the villain in this one?
The main guy.
Yeah.
I liked him. I don't know. It's hard to say about the villain because
What was his character's name? I can't remember. Space. Well, I'm tired. Because of course, Vader's in it. Grand Moff Tarkin's in it.
But it is. Hang on, I'm pulling up IMDb.
And what's the actor's name too? Because I want to make sure we mention him
Krennic.
correctly. Krennic.
Orson Krennic.
Yeah.
And his name is Ben Middleton.
Okay.
I thought he did really well. It was interesting, his motivation, I feel like.
Yeah.
He just wanted to build a superpower, and he obviously wanted to show it off. But when you never understood where his character lied compared to New Hope. That was like, okay, where is this guy fitting in? Well, because in New Hope, you know that Moff Tarkin is in charge of the Death Star. Then, when after the first test...
But they already established Moff Tarkin was in charge of the Death Star at the end of Revenge of the Sith, too.
Well...
So, and they even alluded to that, too, in Tarkin saying, I'm going to come back and take it over again. Which was cool. Yeah, you don't want to stay with us because we're spoiling.
Sure.
But at the same time, he's in charge of overseeing the entire thing. Mm-hmm. And... But even, the Moff's, having him, all right, you're going to test this thing right now. And then, and then you got Vader who's breathing down Krennic's neck also. But at the same time, after the test goes great, Moff's going to be there to take over and take all the pride away from Krennic. So Krennic goes to cry to Vader like, hey, no, I want my power. And then he gets force choked, which then I like the little pun. Don't choke on your your ambitions. But it was, I thought it was really well done to see where he lied in compared to Moff. Mm-hmm. Still wasn't the greatest villain, but it was enough to.
Well, I think it expanded on the Empire for me.
Yeah.
The organization of the Empire. We always joke around about the guys who died on the Death Star, who were just janitors or whatever else. But we forget that it's a military organization, and within the military organization, there are the guys who have ambitions. There are the guys who want to move their careers forward. And he was very much one of those guys, and he was willing to annihilate whole planets to advance his career. Like, that's how messed up this guy is in my view.
I got so distracted halfway through what I was talking about there.
His ambition is so high.
Well, I agree. I like that. Unlike a lot of the villains who they have the troopers there to guard and do the fighting for them, and you'd stand back and do their villainy monologues. This guy was getting in there.
No.
So this guy, he was he'd get in there. He'd kick butt. He was fighting. He was pulling out his blaster just like all the troopers fighting people off. So I like that about him. I like I always liked. I guess one of my favorite parts about Star Wars and having the Darth Vader character in the first trilogy is that everyone's afraid of him. And you have the moment here too where they go to see him and they're just terrified of Darth Vader, and they all kind of cringe, and they all just get really, they close themselves up when he comes out. He's just an intimidating Lord Vader, and he just pulls it off. And the moment where he tries to, buck for promotion, Darth's like, no, buddy.
Which you saw Mustafar,
right?
Allegedly.
Again, that was
I loved that whole conversation between Krennic and Vader.
Yep.
Because Vader's position within the Empire is always a little weird, because he's not a general.
He's technically, I guess he's technically not second in command to the Emperor.
He's the right hand of the Emperor, but he's not.
He's not
technically in command.
He's like on
and you even see that in A New Hope. Yeah. Vader, release him. Right. like you had to listen to Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yes.
Because he's not in the end a military leader. He's a spiritual leader of the Sith.
Right.
Which all these years down the road, no other Sith, no other Jedi.
Right.
Who is he really?
Yeah.
He's just this big badass ball of terror is all he is,
Yeah.
When that lightsaber ignites in the hallway.
Yeah.
You know, you could sense those guys pissing their pants.
Yeah.
Like that was the emotion that came
Well,
in that hall. It
it
was
was-
so great.
Just a perfectly crafted scene of the darkness, and then you hear him breathe, and then you're like, "Oh, what's going to happen?" You don't know as a new person seeing this, and then boom, he comes up with his lightsaber. You're like,
And
holy shit! It's about to go down.
and we've never seen Vader move like that.
Yeah.
In that suit,
Right.
And that's what we've always wanted to see.
I want to see him kick ass, and he did
It's the stuff it's always been alluded to. It's always been kind of talked about.
The most
even when
powerful Jedi
he's
Sith of all
fighting
time.
Luke in Empire, you feel like he's holding back. You know,
Right.
like he should be better than that. You know, and by the time you get to Jedi, you know, Luke's just younger and stronger than him at that point. You know, like I don't think Luke's even better than him. I just think Vader at that point's kind of exhausted.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well,
And
it's
in
part of-
emotional turmoil.
Well, and then that's the point of him in the suit. Had he beaten or at least escaped with half of his body, against Obi-Wan, he may have possibly been the most powerful Sith. But no, he's constrained in this bodysuit that constrains his movement, his power. It's a torture device. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, well, designed by the Emperor. Right?
Exactly. Because the Emperor
To
doesn't...
sustain his life, but
Right.
not necessarily,
Give him extra.
you know.
Because the Emperor still wants to be the most powerful thing.
Emperor's smart, Sith they always usurp each other.
Right.
You know? What better way to keep your apprentice down
Yep.
than to create the thing that keeps him alive, also keeps him neutered. You know?
So I was watching the ships too a lot in this, and they matched, the New Hope with certain ships I hadn't seen before. So I'm wondering.
There were a
about that.
lot of new ships.
Yeah.
And there were some ships. What I really liked, there was a small TIE fighter that was very close to the Jedi fighters.
Yeah.
That were kind of round, but a little bit of the TIE look to it. With a
the-
little bit of the nose that
The
Obi-Wan.
tie
and-
blades were down
Yep.
in a delta formation instead of
Yep. So
on the
they
sides,
they
yeah.
had ships that totally merged between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and it was really cool.
Yeah, it's good to see. I love that they did, and I know that Family has still was going to do another take on the Green Leaders, the series, the check-in,
yeah.
the fighter team check-in.
Yeah.
Red Leader standing by, Green Leader standing by, Gold Leader standing by.
Well, and they did a good job of CGIing all those guys too,
No, we're good. Yeah.
because those guys all looked like the guys from New Hope.
Okay, I'll do it. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so Gold Leader and Red Leader from A New Hope are in this.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right. See, this is what you do in a podcast with nerds. They
Yep.
know this stuff.
yeah. It was.
And Red
I mean,
Fi-
Red Leader standing by. I was like, oh. Gold Leader
And-
standing. Oh.
and there's a Red 5 pilot.
Yeah, Red
That
5
di-
bites it.
And she
And I'm like,
she
there's
bites.
an opening for Red 5.
Yep, and that's Luke becomes Red 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Magic. That's awesome.
Yeah. Details. It's the small
Details.
details.
And the cameo from the Cantina in
Yeah.
Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You
Yes.
caught that, right?
Yes, that's true. I did catch that.
Hey,
Yeah,
you
I'm
watch
starting
yourself.
trouble.
I'm
again.
wanted in 9 galaxies.
Trouble again. Yeah. Oh God.
We've got the death sentence on 12 systems.
Both systems. That's it. Okay.
Oh, it's good. So good.
There were so many little cameos and Easter eggs in this. Oh my god, it was so good.
So this is I think what's good too is that I haven't seen, and I've seen all of them. I don't think I've seen one that just really said I thought it's gratifying for all. There's no one. I don't think anyone is going to. I mean, other than with the CGI, I heard one person, "Oh, I like this," the CGI, blah blah. No, this is an excellent film across the board. Well done. Everyone can pick apart the others. But this is the one that of the new. As far I'm not talking about the new series since the first trilogy, that everyone just scoffed and beat up. This is one I don't think really anyone can beat up about anything.
Yeah. Of the 5 non-original trilogy films, it's definitely the best of those 5. And I would argue it's the best of all 9 or 8. Because technically it's 8.
Yeah, it's like I said in the beginning. I have nothing bad to say about it. And kudos to Michael
Giacchino
for a great score.
Mm-hmm.
First thing we've heard that's not
a John Williams
not
score.
John Williams for a main movie.
I was reading online today. I guess and I thought I remember having read it before that Alexander Desplat was going to score this film, but he had to step away, or he stepped away for some reason a while back. And I guess Giacchino came in and scored this in 4 weeks.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to stream the soundtrack tomorrow. I've been waiting all week, and I finally read on the news today. They're not releasing it till tomorrow.
Yeah.
We were just talking about the score, the music.
Oh, the music.
First non-John Williams Star Wars soundtrack.
They seem to incorporate the traditional.
A little bit, a couple like you hear a little bit of Imperial March.
There was a little bit of Imperial. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of, but it was just a good Star Wars score without having to have all the fanfare.
Mm-hmm. Right. Did he do Star Trek? The new?
He did.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah. And he did a great job with us.
J.J. Abrams' composer did this score.
Okay.
And I'm assuming he did Lost?
Yep. Lost and Alias and all that stuff. Mission Impossible 4.
3.
3. I think he might have done 4 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other than Forrest Whitaker, Jimmy Smith, I'm trying to think of well-known actors that are in this. It's Forrest Whitaker, it's Jimmy Smith. You might say the guy that plays the lead scientist from the Bond movie. He's kind of well-known, not really.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Who else? The guy from The Night Of is not really well-known, so I can't count him. I think will propel him even more than The Night Of probably has. Excited to see him in the movie.
What else Diego Luna been in?
I've never seen him in anything.
I don't think
because I recognize him, but I'm like, I can't put my finger on where.
No. But
quick, Mike, to the internet.
But would you say that it's the one of the sole purpose to have Jimmy Smith is to introduce Leia, to lead into Leia, for him to have this lines? Well, I'm going to give this to someone who I can trust with my life, and it's
I mean, he is her adopted father, and
but there's other characters that were, that after the fallout from with the.
Well, I mean, here's one of those interesting things. It's like, if you watch The Force Awakens, it felt like the prequels never existed. Right? It was so deeply rooted in the original trilogy and paying homage to the original trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was.
It really felt like they were wiping the slate clean, and we're going to act like the prequels never happened.
But at the same time, that takes place 30 years after.
No, absolutely. But
Revenge.
Disney had an opportunity here to essentially wipe the slate clean and act like the prequels never happened.
Yeah.
I see what you're getting at, yeah.
But by bringing Jimmy Smits in, by bringing the girl who played Mon Mothma in the prequels in,
the differences between, subtle as with ships and all the...
By bringing in even Forrest Whitaker to play a character that originated on the Clone Wars cartoon, which is itself a direct pull from those prequel trilogy films.
Yeah.
They've legitimized the prequels.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
And have essentially now said, whether you liked them or not, they're part of the lore.
Right.
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 And for that, I like it.
Yeah.
Because, I, as a filmmaker, I can tell you all the places where the prequels suck, But as an uncle who's watched them with his nephews and the little kids who watch these movies, they love them.
Yeah. Really.
They don't see the flaws.
Right.
They just enjoy Star Wars.
Right.
For Star Wars, because they don't carry the nostalgia bucket that we've got. They just don't care.
I'm right. I'm 32, so I'm right.
You're
I'm right on that
edge.
bottom where I understand. I love the originals. Like Return of the Jedi is probably my favorite, but at the same time, Revenge of the Sith is probably my might even be my favorite because Vader is my favorite villain of all time out of any movie, comic, whatever. He's always been. Just to see how Anakin gets twisted and turned into Vader, really, story-wise is great. But then for me, it's the lightsaber battles. The battles in it.
How old were you when Sith came out?
That was
It's like 2003.
no, it was later than that. Because I was in college, so I would say I was probably 20 or 21.
Okay.
Because I was in college, I remember seeing it. It was either my junior or sophomore year, maybe. But yeah, the lightsaber battles in that are just amazing.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, have they already talked about? I don't know the backstory about the original creation of the Empire because it's, to me, clearly modeled after the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the creators come back and say, well, yes, we did model after Nazis.
Oh, Lucas has never made any bones about that.
Because it's like,
I mean, there's a line in, is it Sith?
2005 was Revenge of the Sith.
Is it Sith when Padme says, "And this is how democracy dies," to thunderous applause? Which is a complete reference to Hitler,
right?
And Trump.
Well, at the time it was Bush because there was a war thing I think going on.
Yeah.
But yeah. It does have its relevancy today as well. You know, this idea that
Well, I see far more parallels to the election of Trump
I literally posted
to
that
the
clip.
rise of Hitler than I ever saw in the Bush years.
I posted that clip
night. It's an absolute parallel. It's uncanny the things that are happening. I don't want to go into the politics stuff on this.
Well, it's hard not to though, because Star Wars, for all its fantasy and everything else, at the heart of it is a very political story.
Sure, it's about how dictatorship is bad for everyone, and how no one should sit and let someone have total control over their lives and what they do, and how common people have the power to rise up and take their world back from this overarching, supposedly fiercely deadly force.
Yep.
That common people banding together and in some cases using a power that is beyond just a gun or a blaster or bombs or whatever, that they can defeat a menace to their society.
Well, like for me right now, that story is playing out in North Dakota.
Really? Oh, yeah.
You know? It's that small band of rebels that won't let down.
Right.
You know?
Now, I don't mind going into this, but I didn't follow it. I was honestly working a lot, and I didn't know that it was bad, what was happening, that was wrong. But I did hear a lot of reports about the police being brutal to them and doing the hoses and whatever.
I'll show you the videos.
Yeah.
Because I'm
like, what? They're peacefully protesting, but they're being fired upon? I didn't get that at all.
It's so disheartening. I'll show you the videos.
Okay.
I know all the places to find it.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, very much the North Dakota Access Pipeline stuff is very much a Star Wars story in modern day.
Yeah, and the theme of the Star Wars stories is, I guess there's certain story themes. What is it? Man versus man versus society, man versus himself, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or good versus evil, and these different constructs of a story. This is a good versus evil story overall. But again,
But it's also man versus society.
okay.
It's also man versus himself.
Okay.
You know, I think the richness of the Star Wars stories is that they function on so many of those levels. Because on the large scale, you've got the rebels trying to defeat the Empire, right? Which is a classic kind of good versus evil. Then you've got Jedi versus Sith, which is also classic good versus evil. But then you have Farm Boy having to find his way and discover the strength within, which is man versus self.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And then when you throw in the mysticism of the Sith, Vader, the powers that they have, it's man versus monster. You know?
Yeah.
So you have all these
I think,
And
I'd say
then this
amazing
one,
levels.
technology.
You know? Yeah, man versus
Death Star.
technology is there. Yeah.
true. I think the training sequence with Yoda and Luke has just magical moments with that. I mean, the iconic scene where he lifts the ship up and he says, "I don't believe it." And he says, "That's why
That
you fail."
is why you fail.
These are like classic, iconic moments in film, especially with Star Wars.
Well, that to me is what Star Wars is at its best. Like the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Star Trek is so rooted in like believable science to the point of being a turnoff to some people because it's like, I don't want to sit and attend a lecture,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And there are some episodes of The Next Generation that are just like beating you over the head with politics.
Sure.
You know?
Well, Star Trek, if we were talking about that was, from what I understood it, Gene Roddenberry, it was man's facet within himself. Like each character on that bridge was a facet within a person. You know, there's the logic, there's the emotional, there's the feminine, there's the...
Yeah, and you're able to have all the different facets of
Yeah.
humanity functioning together or battling against each other. You know,
But these are
to try and find
those
their
are
way.
the magic of the old TV shows that were able to pull that off and do well. Gilligan's Isle is another example of that. It's a microcosm.
Exactly.
Of different people.
But the thing that Star Wars does is Star Wars functions, I think, on a far more simplified storytelling scale to be more like parables.
Yeah.
You know, more like the way Jesus taught. You know, here's a story, you know, and you're going to enjoy listening to this story, but you're going to learn something from hearing the story too. And I don't need to beat you over the head with it necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just, here's a story.
Yeah.
Enjoy the story.
The other thing too about this is that I thought compared to the other films, very minimal lightsaber usage in this.
None. I mean,
I mean,
outside of
Darth
Vader,
Vader
at
at
the
the
end.
end.
That was it.
Yeah. As opposed to the other one.
Because there were no Jedi.
Yeah.
There's no Jedi. This was a Jedi-free movie.
Pretty much. And there's one scene, too, I noticed there's a big monument of rock that's turned over on the side. Is that supposed to be a Jedi?
Yeah,
It's an old-
Jeddah
Okay.
is one of the Jedi planets where they harvested kyber crystals,
Right.
which are the crystals that create
Sure.
the lightsabers.
Lightsabers, yeah.
Kyber crystals have a unique quality in that they bond with the Force user who harvests them. And it's that bonding that creates the color of the blade. So Sith are red,
Right. Yeah.
but Jedi are blue or green,
Yeah.
or in Mace Windu's case, purple.
Right.
There's white. There's yellow. There's a whole.
There are
gamut.
white. There are yellows. There are various colors. But Jeddah is where they went to get them. And as they've developed the lore of Jedi and the crystals over the years, the Jedi actually go as part of their training.
It's like a pilgrimage.
It's a pilgrimage,
Okay.
and you get it. Vader says it to Luke in Return of the Jedi. I see you've constructed your own lightsaber. At last, your training's complete. It's like the final piece of
Right.
training
Okay.
is to build your own lightsaber.
And they do that in
They did it in Clone Wars.
Rebels
They've
a
done it
lot.
in Rebels. So all the cartoons, they've gone to these places where the
Okay, so
kyber
you got
crystals
this from
are.
this- okay.
So
Yeah,
there's
they do
all
that.
this lore that's been building up
Yeah.
on the animated series,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're really like branching that into the movies now, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Did I read it into this? Like they're harvesting the kyber crystals to. That's what powers the Death Star.
Yep.
Like the weapon. Like that was
Yeah.
really cool how they tied that in.
Yeah,
You have no idea what the laser was
Yeah.
until now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now we know.
It's this big mass of crystals they put into this thing, and they funnel some other source.
They pipe the power into the crystal, and the crystal focuses the blade, and
Yeah,
It was
really
very cool. It was a very cool way to tie that all together.
Yeah. Really
But
nice.
so Jeddah is, and that city was a sacred Jedi city
Yeah.
that supported the mining of kyber crystals and the Jedi
And
who would come there to look for it. And so that monument was just one of those tips of the hat to, 1,000 generations of Jedi that had come to that planet.
I'm wondering if it stood up at one point, long time
I'm
ago,
sure.
and then has
Because it
just
looked like it had
The
fallen
Empire
down.
came into
down.
power. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that makes sense. A lot more sense.
But even
So-
in the time of Phantom Menace and all that stuff, a lot of those temples and stuff were old
Right.
and ancient and not necessarily upkept. Like that statue could have been down already at that point. I mean, it was buried halfway in the sand.
And we don't really, I mean, we kind of generally know, but we don't really know how much time is in between Revenge of the Sith and now. Because like you saw the very end of Revenge, like this Death Star just starting to get built.
So well, you do because
what Leia's age is versus
Luke and Leia are
Oh, that's
like
right.
18,
Duh.
17, 18 years old. So it's been 17,
15,
18 years.
18 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But incredibly cool. I mean, you listen to Yoda talk about the Jedi, and Obi-Wan talk about the Jedi. For 1,000 generations, they were the keepers of peace throughout the galaxy. 1,000 generations is a long ass time.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, if you think of the Jedi in their early days when they first defeated the Sith, and
Did they go
Knights-
over that in the
the
Clone Wars?
Knights of the Galaxy.
Knights of the Old
Any other
Republic.
animated
that's the
series?
Old Republic, which is covered in a lot of the video games.
Yep.
Did they go into that in the animated series at all? About
They
the-
talk about it,
Okay.
but they've
no
not
flashback,
told
whatever.
those
Okay.
stories.
Yeah.
But those stories have been played out a little bit in the video games because there's a whole series of Old Republic video games.
Okay.
But if you were to think back to that, like how much the galaxy must have just embraced the Jedi in the early days, a giant city where they get their crystals that allow them to protect the galaxy would be a revered place where they would build giant statues.
Yeah.
like
Jesus.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It's religion. It's
religion, it's everything else.
power. Yep. So you have these huge mechas in the middle of different planets.
Yeah,
that have,
well, and that's what Luke in The Force Awakens is off
right.
doing. Right, he was going from
One temple to
one
another.
temple to the other, trying to find the secrets of the Jedi, the original temple, and that's where Rey finds him at the end of that film. And that's something they've been doing more and more with Star Wars Rebels, the animated series that's on Disney XD right now. Is they've been chasing the kind of mythology of the Sith and the Jedi
And Vader-
Force users.
Vader and his,
Not just Sith and Jedi, but
Force
people who
users.
use the Force in
Yeah.
various levels. you
Yeah.
know?
and Vader and his Inquisitors have been finding these temples and destroying them,
Yeah.
or getting the power from them. Finding holocrons on them.
Yeah. So it's very cool. Like what Disney has done, because they wiped out the expanded universe, all the books that had been written for
Which
like
there's
25
some
years.
really
There were
good books, which are
There were some excellent
Oh.
books, but they wiped them all out and
Yep.
said, we're starting clean. We want a fresh slate. We may bring back some of those characters and stuff from some of those books, possibly within the context of the new stories we're telling. But we're going to tell new stories.
One of my
and by
favorite-
doing that, they've allowed themselves to really create a narrative cohesion
Yeah.
across all the franchises that they're creating for the
one of my favorite
Star Wars universe.
books that I hope they at least base it off a little bit was a Han Solo trilogy, and it's Han's
I could see that coming.
prequel. Well, they're doing a Han Solo
Yeah.
young movie,
Yeah.
but it starts with him as a kid,
Did
meeting
you audition for
Lando,
Lando?
I didn't. I've been waiting.
meeting Lando, meeting Boba
been
Fett,
cast.
growing up, and all
Damn
this
it.
stuff. It literally ends at Mos Eisley Cantina. It was really well done.
Well, they wrote a comic book about Han in the new stuff.
Right. Which comics are canon now.
Yeah. And it deals with his wife.
Yep. I
Oh,
know.
wow.
She's
Yeah.
African American.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the character now that they've established that as canon, that he had a wife and she was, like
Which
how
was not
much
in the books.
how much of that will we get in the young Han Solo movie? Because you got to figure whatever they were doing in the comic book, they're fully aware that they're setting the groundwork for whatever story they're going to tell of this character in his younger days.
Right.
It'd be very interesting.
So, as far as
It's a good time to be a Star Wars fan.
It
I'm
is.
just saying that.
Another visual effect I thought was interesting that I haven't seen the others is the jumps to light space and coming out of hyperspace. So, for the first time, we saw that the ships actually do appear and they run into each other sometimes.
Oh, that was awesome.
Coming out of hyperspace. I thought it was cool. They figured out that, hey, this probably happens. It doesn't always.
That I think
One thing
is
that was missed too is that they did a line where they said, "Hey, we've detected a huge object coming out of hyperspace, and it's the Death Star." But they don't show
I
it
wish
coming
they
out.
just showed it.
Yeah.
To see that thing just kind of go,
Yeah,
would have been amazing.
Because my question would have been, how are they propelling that into hyperspace? What are they using to propel it? It's a slow moving.
Well, that's always been the question I had. How do they move that thing around?
But again, the fact of them sort of showing running into each other and suddenly being in the way of each other, I thought that was awesome.
But that feels to me like that's where Star Trek had an influence on Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Because the last few Star Trek films, they've had that happen. They come out of hyperspace and right into the thick of crap.
Well, I guess in the original New Hope, that's one thing that they do is they were trying to go to this planet. They come out of hyperspace and it's blown up, and they're running into the debris.
They're running into the asteroids and stuff. Yeah. Or the debris.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's neat to see the kind of progression of how, with each successive film, kind of the ideas are expanded and improved upon and improved upon. And we don't need to go back and create more special editions. We just need to make more movies.
Yeah.
And I'm a total apologist for the special editions. I love them, but I'm glad that we're getting new content.
Yep.
Yeah. So, were you guys really worried after this whole Disney takeover of the Star Wars? Because it's weird to me to see that it's like in Disneyland, Disney World. It was always for me as growing up. It's a separate thing. Disneyland, great. That's Mickey Mouse, other stuff. This is Star Wars, a whole different.
Well, I guess that's it. No, it's interesting because in 1987, I attended a. We've been annual pass holders at Disneyland for years in my family. Okay. 1987, we were at Disneyland. Just happened to be there on the day that they did previews on Star Tours.
Sure.
That's 1987. I was only 12 years old.
But I thought that was like something they kind of licensed from Star Wars. Okay, you don't mind, we're going to make this ride. It's kind of like
they did.
Cool.
They did.
Right.
But Lucas then turned around and made Captain EO.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you saw this kind of
mid-90s. They bring Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my high school years are all involved in George Lucas wrapping his stuff up into Disney parks. And I kind of always just figured, in a lot of ways, like, when he's done, that's where Lucasfilm is going to go. He's going to sell all this stuff to Disney. I've kind of just always assumed that. Really? Because that seemed to be what he was doing anyway. He's like laying the groundwork for it. Yeah. So when they made the announcement, I wasn't surprised, like not in the slightest. And by the time they made that announcement, Disney had already paid $4 billion for Pixar, and that transition went very, very well. They had already paid $4 billion for Marvel, and that transition went very, very well. And I went, and because they let Pixar continue to be Pixar, but incorporated Pixar into Disney's animation. So actually improved Disney's animation. Didn't ruin Pixar, improved Disney.
Yeah.
They bought Marvel, and they just let Marvel do Marvel. Right?
Yeah.
And they haven't even, Marvel-fied the parks yet. They've let Marvel just do Marvel's thing.
Yeah.
And that's gone over exceptionally well.
Yeah.
So by the time they got to buying Lucasfilm, I just went, that makes sense.
It's a logical progression.
That's where this was going, and with the recent history of how they've functions, it makes sense. And you look at what Disney's done this year at the box office, between the Disney animated films, the Pixar animated films, the Marvel films, and Lucasfilm, Disney holds the record this year of the most money ever made by a studio
Yeah.
in a single year.
Yeah.
I think I commented on your Facebook the other day. You posted like the 12 best movies of 2016, and La La Land was number one.
Mm-hmm.
But all the rest were kind of lower budget, not indie, but you know what I mean, like just that. But I commented, like, it's interesting that the two biggest names on that are two Disney films. One of them's Moana, and then the other one was Doctor Strange. Now I'm sure this would have been Rogue One hadn't come out yet, so that wasn't added to that list. But there you go.
Yeah, it's
If any other big studio, it was Disney that made it.
yeah, and Disney's not the Disney it was of the '90s when Michael Eisner was the guy in charge.
Yeah.
When they got rid of Eisner, and I forget the name of the guy who's in charge now, but the guy in charge right now, he's got a smart mind.
I read somewhere that Eisner started as a tour guide for like Paramount.
Oh, Eisner like worked his way up in Hollywood for sure, you know. But by the time he got to the last 10 years or so of his tenure at Disney, it was just all about money,
Really?
you know, and the art suffered.
Yeah.
And when the new guy took over at Disney, the very first thing he did was went and had a meeting with Steve Jobs and said, "What do I have to do to get Pixar back?" And that was the kind of death knell for Eisner at Disney, was he let Pixar go.
Yeah.
and the shareholders went, "What the are you doing?"
Yeah.
You know, like they're the hottest thing in Hollywood right now, and you let them go?
Yeah.
Even a bad deal with them's a good deal,
Yeah.
you know? And the fact that he convinced Steve Jobs to completely sell Pixar over was like, this dude knows what he's doing,
Yeah.
you know? And then how he handled that transition and said, we're not just buying Pixar, we're incorporating Pixar into the Disney brand, but letting Pixar be Pixar, but also having them influence the rest of the deal. And so John Lasseter, who came up in Disney, but was, you know, the
Pixar.
guy
Yeah.
at Pixar.
Yeah.
They brought Lasseter in and put him in charge of the parks and in charge of the animation department.
Nice.
And they took the guy who was kind of the brain power of Pixar and put him kind of in charge of the corporate side of Disney as well. And it's affected everything at Disney ever since.
Yeah.
For the better. The park experience is better. It's a bit expensive, but the park experience is better. The films have been better, like across the board.
Yeah.
And I like, you know, you can tie everything in together, you know, so ABC is owned by Disney, and the TV channel. So it's like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Marvel, you know, like it ties in with the movies. Like everything is way more of a connective unit now.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., actually.
That's cool.
What?
Yeah. Worked on Agents.
When was that?
And last year. So who's the actress, the Asian actress on that?
Oh God, she voices Mulan. Mulan.
Just as beautiful in person.
Oh,
And she's-
what is her name?
And just as sweet. Awesome. And the lead actor that is Agent
Coulson.
Coulson.
Clark Gregg.
Cool guy, very funny. Accomplished director himself.
Total nerd.
Don't nerd. Yeah, but he you know, gets
He's
lines. has
a
good scenes
huge
over.
comic book nerd.
Yeah. It was a real nice production to work on. So anyway,
Ming Na.
Yes,
Ming Na. That's her.
and Clark Gregg.
yeah.
Chloe Bennett.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Rogue One, amazing. Definitely going to see it again
Definitely.
many times.
Definitely.
Yep.
I haven't wanted to see a movie again like this in a long time. I definitely want to see this again.
Yeah,
Anytime.
the sooner the better.
Yeah.
This weekend, I got to take my 6-year-old
Right.
nephew to see it.
Right.
He was so bummed
that he couldn't go.
that he couldn't come tonight because we couldn't get a ticket for him.
Yeah.
He's 6,
Yeah.
right? And he's been kind of iffy about Star Wars for the last year.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last like week, he's just
Suddenly
been
it's
like,
like, oh, yeah,
I want to see it. I want to see it. And we're like, we don't have tickets. Like today, he was literally like cry face.
Oh my gosh.
Upset that he couldn't come tonight.
Sorry, Sean.
We're like, no, it's cool. We'll take you this weekend.
Yeah.
Oops, really? Like, yeah. Believe me,
sure.
we're gonna see this again. The sooner the better. Know what I'm saying?
Well, you probably need to go buy tickets now online.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking about it. What do we think about the take on this? And word gets out. Word's already out, but people saying this now, tonight, this weekend. What kind of numbers are we thinking for this movie, for this weekend?
It's going to be the biggest December opening
Clearly.
on record, I'm sure.
What's the biggest weekend film opening? You ever look that up, anyone?
The biggest December?
The biggest weekend opening, period.
A weekend opening
I know
period?
we're looking at relative dollars, but the actual just face value dollars now.
Is it still... No, it's not. It's been broken so many times in the last year and a half.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens is the one, right? Because prior to that was Jurassic World.
Yep. And then Marvel's The Avengers, and then Avengers Age of Ultron.
Civil War. Age of Ultron was good. I think this is going to take it. I think
Yeah, I think there's a definite possibility. And here's the thing too: is like, I think we've all gone through so much weird emotional shit since the beginning of November. I think people are ready for like a big tentpole movie escape right now.
Yeah, you're right. Very true.
And I think this is the movie that's going to deliver it.
I think so.
Multiracial cast too.
Yeah.
Like the most multiracial cast of any Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll beat Force Awakens or not, because when that was coming out, I mean, it was the original cast, like.
Oh, because they had
it's the original story. I don't know. It will definitely do huge.
Okay.
Will it beat Force Awakens? I'm not sure.
Well, I guess true, because you got Harrison Ford back. That means you've got old people that didn't want anything to do with the newer batch of Star Wars. Now, Harrison Ford's back. We'll go check it out. But I still think this is good.
Well, I mean, Fandango crashed within minutes trying to sell
Comic-Con all over.
So
Although I've lucked out with Comic-Con. So.
The last time that happened to us was when Force Awakens tickets went on sale. So
Interesting.
I think there's a possibility. I think right now, Star Wars is so hot right now.
Right.
Because Force Awakens was so well received. I think people are just excited. It's the same Marvel effect. When Marvel movies come out right now, people are excited to see Marvel movies.
Especially when you have big
Even if
gambles
they
like
don't
Doctor
know
Strange.
them. Like Ant-Man did boffo numbers, and most people don't know Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy was a completely crap comic book property that did boffo numbers in the box office because Marvel has earned that right. And I think what J.J. Abrams was able to do last year with The Force Awakens is earn the right for Star Wars to sit back at the top of that kind of echelon of films that people are excited to see each year, every other year.
And see a new take on it. Like with different directors each time, now that we're doing all these Star Wars stories that are spin-offs or, whatever.
And I think that's another thing, too, that really needs to be emphasized, is this is unlike any other Star Wars film.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Period.
Yeah.
It's the most unique piece of Star Wars film you've ever seen. If you've seen Star Wars Rebels, it'll feel on par with that kind of storytelling because it exists within the same time frame as Star Wars Rebels does and the same kind of conditions that those characters survive within.
Yeah.
But for the films, it is a unique Star Wars perspective that we've not had.
Yeah.
And I think because it's untethered now from the Skywalker saga, I think that's going to allow a lot of storytelling freedom. Yeah. And Kathleen Kennedy said that there is an endless realm of stories to be told in the Star Wars universe. And after seeing this tonight, I can see that.
Yeah, and we can all be more excited to see them.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this with Force Awakens with Rey's character and her parentage. Like, having it not be a Skywalker opens that up to
That
a
alone.
whole
Yeah.
bunch of different characters
That
and
alone.
you can go to different planets and all, so it's having new characters and species and places just opens that up to. I mean, how many planets did we go to on the
There were a lot of
6
planets
or
in this
7?
movie.
that too. There's a lot of plants I hadn't heard of.
6 or 7 different locations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There have been rumors going around the last couple of weeks about why they haven't solidified on the idea of doing an Obi-Wan standalone movie because they're not done with him yet in the saga, which lends some idea to the idea that Obi-Wan may be Rey's father
Okay.
or
Well,
grandfather.
I guess it would need to be leading up to his tutelage under Qui-Gon Kang or whatever the
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah.
Well, and then
Because
Clone Wars.
otherwise he's a big part of the story after that. From that point
Well,
on.
I think there's a capacity for that storyline to be part of the branching off of Obi-Wan's experience after he arrives at Tatooine and while Luke's still a baby.
Okay. That could be.
So you got to figure he didn't need to
Yeah.
hang out all the time until Luke was maybe in his preteen years, you know? Like,
Yeah, and he wasn't just sitting in the cave all day.
yeah, he wasn't sitting in a cave meditating for 20 years, you know? Like,
And,
and
I'm sure he
obviously-
did a bit of that. but-
beating up an
And-
occasional sandman, which he must have done often. He was scared to death of him. So
And she died in Clone Wars, but he had a huge thing for I'm trying to remember the Mandalorian Queen. Mm-hmm. And he at one point he even said, "I would have left the Jedi when she's dying. I would have left the Jedi Order for you."
Yeah.
So he's not immune to not knowing love.
Well, and let's face it, the whole time he's on Tatooine, he's not a member of the Jedi Order anymore.
he's just a dude living in the desert.
He's just a dude who, knows about the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
But he is the last Jedi at that point.
He's just
Do
learning.
you
To,
leave-
he's learning to commune with
Do you
the
leave
dead.
all the proverbial eggs in the Skywalker basket?
Right.
I don't know. Questions to be answered in the future. So,
A year from now.
episode 8, next year. Thanks for sitting down, guys.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I'm glad you came, Merrick.
Yeah, me too.
It's nice hanging out with you.
I know. I'm hanging out more with friends now.
What was your favorite moment?
My favorite moment? I think my favorite moment was when Chitty, is that his name?
Sure.
Chitty? Dan Yun.
Donnie Yen.
Dan Yen. When he opens up a can of whoop ass on the stormtroopers, like,
It's so good. The martial arts.
I was just like, yeah, dude's a badass. Like,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And not a Jedi.
Right.
Did it with a stick.
Yeah.
I thought that was probably my favorite moment.
What about you, Merrick?
It's clearly the Darth Vader in the dark hallway.
Yep.
It's the best. Can't say it enough.
I think what it is, I was sold already by the time we got
Oh,
to
you were?
that
Okay.
point. You know, like I already love this movie. Like that was icing on the cake.
Yes.
But the turning point for me going, okay, I'm in. Right?
Yeah.
Was the fight in
Okay.
Jeddah.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, no Jedi, but still badass, you know?
Well, see,
Walkers in the middle of the city.
And walkers in the middle of the city. Like, I mean, that's stuff we just haven't seen, you know? Like, it's always out in the forest or in ice or like whatever, you know? This was like gritty war stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a great expansion on the storytelling in the universe for me.
What about you? Your favorite moment?
Vader.
Yeah.
From him in the back of the tank, and then, but yeah, the hallway to the end is
Yeah, the hallway was epic.
that's
If anything, I just wish that like was stretched out longer.
longer. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And then just all the little subtle nods and Easter eggs in there. The T-15 reference to the old racer or pod or ship that's obsolete, which is talked about in A New Hope by two stormtroopers. There's so many little things that just tie everything together. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. I can't wait to watch it again just to catch more of the little subtleties.
Worth watching. All the stuff I learned from you guys, so now I'm ready to see it again. Yeah.
And I like the Spider-Man trailer in the very beginning, seeing that in 3D.
Yeah.
On a big screen was awesome.
Yeah.
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 What else that we saw in a trailer for that the Pirates. I was thinking of watching it, you got to see that in 3D because it's just the way the villain moves in that.
Yeah,
Javier Bardem underwater or something.
Yeah, the way his hair is moving like it's underwater.
Because I saw it on the 2D on something, and it didn't look. It had a lesser effect than it does when you're watching that in 3D.
Yeah.
So that's a 3D.
When 3D's done well,
it
really expands the film.
Yeah.
When it's done poorly, it's a complete fucking distraction. Yes. But when it's done well, it can really expand everything.
When I was a kid was Friday the 13th Part 3 in Super
Wow.
3D.
Nice.
This is where they're jabbing the spears right out the screen.
Red and blue glasses.
That was like the sole purpose of 3Ds.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, the horror movies they
I still wish every once in a while they would do a little bit more of that. Like in Force Awakens, the Star Destroyer coming out of the screen was freaking cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't see it in 3D. See? I missed that.
Well, in Star Trek Into Darkness, when they're on the planet, the volcano's exploding in the very beginning of that movie, and the spears are being thrown at them. There was one spear in that movie that made me duck in the movie theater.
like just once or twice.
It was like so
nice.
unexpected. Like fast cuts, and then like this spear like comes right at your face. You're like, oh god. Yeah. But sparingly.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
it's a weird thing because it's the gimmick.
Yeah.
And it's the gimmick that makes it bad. But if you,
at the same time, if you're doing it 3D,
you limit the gimmick to 1 or 2 times within the movie, and it's a surprise when it happens, that's okay.
Yeah.
And the Star Destroyer is a perfect example of what I was talking about, expanding
the universe.
And they did that to great effect in this too. The shot, the first shot of a Star Destroyer, right?
Well,
and
the
shadows coming across it to reveal the whole ship, and then it cuts to the wider shot, and the same shadows doing the same thing across the Death Star behind it. Like that expands
and
the space out.
When you have the Death Star in the back, and you have all the perspective of the Star Destroyers close to you and farther away, you really get to feel how big this Death Star is.
Yeah.
By having that 3D actually in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, when it's done well, it improves storytelling. And that always gets back to what I say. Does it serve story? So, cool. This has been a 2-hour podcast. Seriously.
Really?
Okay. 150. Of course, we had like 12 minutes of weirdness with Denny's patron.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a risk you take.
Yeah. Well, very sweet lady.
Yeah. The risk.
Maybe she's listening to the episode. If so, hello.
Yeah.
Hello, lady. Hello, lady. What's that from?
I don't know.
Oh, God, I know it.
I don't know it.
Oh, it's Andre the Giant.
There you go. Princess Bride.
Princess Bride.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's 4 white horses. There'll be 4 of us if we don't find the lady. Hello, lady.
My sister would know that. My sister Monique would know that.
Inconceivable.
Yeah.
So, cool. We'll be doing this again for episode 8. I hope you'll join us for that as well.
My yearly podcast. Hopefully, I'll be on again.
Mikey only podcasts after Star Wars films.
Oh, really?
Well, we tried last time here after what was that when we came here? But it was interrupted by a.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What? I forget what it was. It must have been Marvel. It must have been a Marvel movie.
Had to have been. It was Ultron.
Yep.
Yeah. Till the next one.
Yep.
I'm your host, Dave Dawson. This is the Intellectual Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Mikey, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely, buddy.
Merrick, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And all the rest of you, go see this fucking movie.
again and again,
Again.
and again,
And again and again.
and again.
And let's make sure that Disney never stops making kick-ass Star Wars films.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.